Yeah, so what is
TV and
the
everything.
segment on?
I just thought it would be really fun. I just loved the article, and you see these things everywhere, obviously all across Maine, on the beaches, trails, everywhere. I never knew any of the stuff that you talked about as far
Oh,
as the
cool.
purpose or kind of the spiritual, meaning behind it all.
Yeah,
So I thought it would just be a fun little segment. It'll
awesome.
be mostly interview, but we'll get some cover video and pictures and whatnot.
That sounds great.
And are we allowed to use any of the pictures from the article? Are
I
those
actually
all?
don't know.
Oh, okay.
I imagine those are licensed through Nat Geo. I think they
Oh, okay.
probably have a photo service. I wonder if they're Getty images. I'm not sure.
Okay. Do you write a lot for them?
Um, I'm writing more for them lately. I haven't. I guess this was my second or third piece with them, but yeah, I'm doing a bit more for them lately. I'm working on another
Excellent.
piece about actually about a Maine landscape painter, Timothy Wilson, who does really beautiful on-site work with Maine Coastal
Nice.
Heritage Trust. So that's
Oh, very
yeah,
cool.
yeah.
Cool. And how did you first start writing for National Geographic? Super cool.
Well, they contacted me because I did actually, because my friend Greta Rebus and we did a book together called Handcrafted Maine. And she had some photos and they wanted to do a story, and we decided, okay, well, we'll work together again. We worked together so well. So
Oh, that's
we,
excellent.
yeah, yeah.
Cool. So, well, we'll get started. What on earth drew you to this topic of rock
Well,
art?
I got interested in rock stacking and rock art when I was in college. I went to school at Bard College, which is in the Hudson Valley, and nearby, near Woodstock, famous Woodstock, New York, is this piece called Opus 40, and it's a work of art, but it's an interactive work of art in that you walk through the landscape, and it is all of these rocks that have been stacked to create a little, it's sort of like a labyrinth, it's sort of like a maze, it's sort of just this flowing, undulating landscape of um, rocks with no mortar in them. It doesn't have any, it's all done by hand tools. And it was the work of an artist named Harvey Fite. And he created it he thought it would take him 40 years. He actually died before it was finished, unfortunately, but he created it over decades and just worked on this tirelessly to create, a really epic piece that feels surreal when you walk into it. I mean, and the thing that I love about it is that Opus 40 it uses the most simple thing you can do. It's rocks placed on top of each other to create something almost dreamlike, to create something so interesting and intricate. And he uses old techniques, some of which he learned from his travels to South America, of rock carving and cutting. And he did it all by hand, and there are people who can do amazing things by just taking a rock and putting it on another rock. And I think that's really cool.
Evidently, so does everybody because people are drawn to this. They do this. So, what is that about? What is it about the human psyche that kind of makes us want to stack rocks?
Well, I think when it comes to making art, it is hard. I have tried to make all sorts of art over the years, and I'm terrible at it. And I wish I wasn't because I love art. But when it comes to stacking rocks, you can take a rock and put it on top of one another, and all you have to do is just sort of wait for the balance and like feel your way until it balances. It's something that takes patience and a little bit of thought, but it doesn't require, some sort of innate talent or a ton of skill. It really just requires you to sit and do it for a minute, to pause long enough that you are allowing these two things to find a balance. And I think that there are cultures around the world that have been doing this for eons. I mean, we've been doing this for as long as we've been making any sort of art. We've been stacking rocks. Some cultures have done this as a way of burying their dead. Some have done it to create tombs. Some cultures use it as a way to guide people, like make path marks. There are plenty of places, like in northern Canada, where the indigenous people would use these rock piles. They create big, big piles of them because they're in an Arctic terrain. There's very little that you can create a path out of. There's not a way to like snap a branch or put down mulch or any of those things. So what you're doing instead is you're putting rocks up, and that'll tell you where to go, and that can tell you where to find water, that can tell you what's an important place spiritually. These rock stacks, cairns, are all over the world, and they're used for so many different purposes.
It brings up an interesting point. I noticed in the article you kind of dissuaded people from making these things on hiking trails because it could confuse people about where to go, right?
Yeah, there's a team I spoke to up in Acadia who, they are the summit rangers. They go across from summit to summit and they take care of them. They make sure the summits are, clean and safe and friendly for everybody. And one of the things they do is they take apart cairns. And that's because you when you are dealing with a fragile environment like an alpine environment and you take rocks out of the landscape, you can cause erosion, you can hurt some of the more delicate plants that live there, and you can also mislay people. That's one thing about stacking rocks that everybody should know is that you can feel free to do this in your backyard as much as you want. Go to the beach, do it where the tide will come in and wash them out. Practice all you need. But when it comes to doing them in parks and in public spaces, make sure it's a place where it's okay to do this because it can cause it can mislay people and it can cause harm to delicate ecosystems, and we really need those to stay around.
Wanted to talk a little bit about the spiritual nature of this. You talked about balance. I think it's really interesting that people take to doing this by the ocean, especially in Maine.
Yeah.
So, what is that about?
Yeah, I think there is something very meaningful about pausing for a while and paying attention to create these little monuments. And there's a lot of different traditions, religious traditions that use this. I know that in the Jewish faith, when you visit a cemetery, you're supposed to leave a rock on the tombstone. Um, and that is a way of saying, I was here. I came and I witnessed, I came for you. I came to respect your memory. And I think when it comes to doing them, or it's even just to paying attention to the rocks on the beach. I mean, this is something I do. I have a toddler, and she's always just like handing me every rock she picks up. And there's actually something really lovely about like paying attention to, which one she picks out and why, and just looking closely at them and being near the water with its kind of ceaseless in and out, the sound that you hear and your breath that you're hearing, everything feels very, very zen, very peaceful. You get to tap into a sense that you are participating in and witnessing something on a geological scale. Human scale can feel very small. It can feel very scary, especially right now. There's a lot of tough news out there. There's a lot going on with coronavirus, and to be able to remind yourself that the time scale of our world is so much greater can feel really comforting, even though, yeah, it makes us feel small.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Have you gotten a lot of feedback on the article?
Yeah, I
Good.
have, and it's been mostly good, but a couple people have been well, there's so many different traditions of stacking rocks that a few people have contacted me saying, "Oh, you didn't mention my favorite tradition. You didn't talk about the one that I grew up knowing about." And it's funny because it's one of those things where I'm like, "Oh, yeah, actually, I wish I had mentioned that. I didn't know about that one." Or like, "Oh, I wish I had space for everything," because it's so ubiquitous that people are doing this and have been doing this for so long. It's so human. There's examples out west in America. There's examples every continent except for Antarctica, where I wonder, I don't know, maybe someone's stacking ice. So
Who knows? If it melts, we
yeah,
may find ancient rock
you
formation.
never know.
You never know. You never know. Hey, this was great. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm not sure when it'll air, but I will let you know. Yeah.
Okay, I hope I didn't ramble too
No,
much.
you were terrific. You were terrific.
Okay.
And just out of curiosity, I mean, people said, I mean, these are real traditions for some people. Are they like family traditions? Is this something they do every year? Is it a pilgrimage they make?
Yeah.
What is it
Yeah,
exactly?
so, I mean, some of them it depends. Some of them are religious traditions. I mean, one of the things I covered is there's a site that people go on a pilgrimage in Spain, and part of that is part of the process of doing this hike, because it's a hike, you're on this for a long time. Part of the process is putting down cairns and creating like monuments along your way as a way of just kind of participating in the tradition and showing other people that you were there. And families do it. I think there's different cultures. There's also, I found that different cultures do it for a lot of different reasons. There's ancient evidence of people building these as a way to worship, and then there's evidence of people building them as a very practical way to keep dead bodies contained. So it's kind of all over the map, with why people do it. And I think there's a cool thing about it is like there's no one right answer. I did also find this is something I wasn't able to include, but I found these amazing artists out in California that do rock stacking on a level that you wouldn't believe, where they are taking like huge rocks, really, really big, heavy rocks, ones that I couldn't lift, and they're putting them on top of little teeny ones. And they're building these like just absolutely wild things. And I, talked to one of them about it, and he just said, yeah, I mean, it's just balance. It's just finding balance. And to me, that's so cool that
Huh.
it's such an interesting, weird work of art, and it looks like it shouldn't be, but it's the most simple thing you could do.
Kind of sounds like too that you're saying the ultimate message here is that I am here. That's what
Yeah.
people are doing. I am
Yeah.
here. I was here.
I've lived, and there's something, I talked to a man who'd written a whole book on this, David Williams. He pointed out that there is something very in line with many religious traditions about this, because it is not just saying, I'm here, I've lived. It's also recognizing that you're building something that will fall over. You're making something that is temporary. You are participating in the geological timescale. You are like on the level of rocks, but you're also making something that is like every single life is temporary. And that balance, that those two tensions, finding that sweet spot where you can both recognize that, yes, we are going to die, but I was here, that can be a way to find a lot of peace.
Beautiful. Thank you. That was really awesome. That
Okay,
was
good.
awesome. Hey, thank you so much. And I'll shoot you an email when I know when this is going to air.
Okay,
We'll
cool.
we'll find rock
Cool. Thank
formation
you. This is
video. I
fun.
mean, God knows that they're everywhere. So we'll find
I
them.
was so nervous, but okay, good.
Yeah.
This
And if
is
you have any pictures that we could use, if you wouldn't mind emailing
okay.
me, that would be phenomenal.
Okay. I know that Opus 40 has pictures that like people can use constantly.
Oh,
So if
okay.
you
Okay. Yeah, we just always
contact
have to
them,
ask permission. Yep.
they will have tons. They have
All
tons
right.
and tons.
All right.
Okay,
Cool.
cool. Thanks.
Thank you. Take care. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Bye now.